Welcome, everyone, to our low-waste menus breakout. My name is Brandon Collins. I am the lead chef for Unilever Food Solutions for North America. So I get I may know a couple people in the room, so so if I mess up, I'm going to go hide real quickly. No. So what we're going to talk about today is low-waste menus, right? And how that can be actually implemented within your operation. And I think what ends up happening, right, is at the end of the day, as we look at low-waste menus, we hear a lot about pickling, fermenting, koji. Those are all very, very scary terms for an operator because at the end of the day, being able to implement those across multiple units is very hard in order to get the expertise that you need. So we're going to talk about ways that you can implement it a little bit easier in some very, very simple ways. So whether it's utilizing the whole vegetable, whenever your vegetables come in the back door, not cutting off the tops, not peeling them. The beauty about not peeling a vegetable is at the end of the day, the vast majority of the vitamins and nutrients that you're going to have in a vegetable is located in the peel. We have always been trained to take that off and discard it because it looks prettier without it on it. Unfortunately, you lose a lot of the flavor and a lot of the experience whenever it comes to that vegetable. The carrot tops are delicious. The peels of a lot of the vegetables have more nutrients in them than the actual vegetable itself. So why am I peeling this? Do I need to? Can I just utilize it in a puree? Can I utilize it whole? How can we utilize this in our operations? Can we look at fermentation and some of the new trends that are happening out there, right? You see the 2% salt brine or the lacto fermentation, which you see a lot of that on the shelves here. And how can you actually utilize that within your operation? It's something very simple and very easy to do. One of the things that we're going to do today is we're going to talk through how the one recipe that we are showing you can be easily accessed and easily done. And you're going to see that throughout the trends and throughout the breakouts that you have here today. It's also going to increase foot traffic, right? Because you're able to utilize some of the cooler sounding ingredients, right? Fermentation, miso, koji, those things are starting to make their way onto a lot of menus. And a lot of the younger generation is looking for those kind of buzzwords and things of that nature as well. But at the end of the day, it's very, very simple to utilize the wasteful products that you're already doing in your operations by just not peeling something, by not taking the top off, by utilizing your spent coffee to create a sauce or something of that nature. So with that being said, I am going to stop talking because I am much better at this portion of it than I am at the talking portion. I'm going to hand it over to somebody who is way more knowledgeable about this than I am, Diego Garcia Vega. So please welcome Diego.
Thank you, Brandon. Is this on? No, now. Thank you. It's such an honor to be able to share with you a bit of one of my great obsessions, which is food waste, or as some like to call it, the food waste scandal. And you're going to realize why we call it these very quickly. So we'll start with some big figures. Do you know how much food is wasted around the world? Raise your hand for 10% of all the food that is produced. No one? 20? 30? Okay, you've done your homework. Yes, but actually it's a 40% according to the most recent and complete estimates of all the food that is produced. This is equivalent to 1/3 of the world's farmland, so we're cultivating the entire surface of Europe and India all together if those were entirely fertile lands, and we're throwing it away to the bin. You understand why we call it a scandal? This is enough food to end hunger 3 times over. So we're 8 billion people, almost 1 are still suffering from malnutrition, and we're producing food for 3 extra billion people, which is actually the population that we'll have by the end of the century. So really, it's the only way to feed the people that we will have on Earth very soon. It's also the most impactful solution to limit climate change below 2 degrees Celsius, according to Project Drawdown. And you see, on top of that, we have reduced food waste and plant-rich diet. So really, your job here, building menus, is really at the heart of maintaining this planet livable. It's, of course, not the only thing we need to do. We need to end fossil fuels. But this is really the most impactful, low-hanging fruit that we have in our hands for tomorrow. So really, you see, my job is pretty easy. The data speaks by itself. This is a very worthy issue that we have the responsibility to engage with. So I'm going to share a few tips. Disclaimer. Oh, no, actually, before. What is wasted? What are those products? Well, we have half of our fruits, vegetables, and tubers that are wasted. We have a third of all grains and seafood. We have a fifth of all meat and dairy, which is 12 billion animals being raised and killed for nothing. And where is it happening? Well, all along the food chain, but we have almost half of it on farms. But it's not independent. Farms depend on consumers. And we're going to see how we buy is creating a lot of waste down upstream in the food chain. So a hierarchy. What should we do with food waste? First of all, we need to reduce it, not let it happen. So I'm going to be sharing some tips on how to do this. This is really the priority. But if we don't manage, we can or we must donate it to people that need it. Otherwise, we can feed livestock with it and turn it into food later on, but we're losing a lot of energy in that process. And really, the last option is losing a lot of energy in the process, but turning it into compost or renewable energy. So I'm going to be focusing on the top one, at the kitchen first. Disclaimer, I'm not a chef, as many people think. I'm a biologist. I study and advocate for sustainable food systems, and I've worked with a lot of chefs in the filming of a TV series on HBO. So I'm going to be sharing a few examples by the chefs that I've worked with. Fruits and vegetables. Really all the greens of all the vegetables that we use can also be eaten, but they're routinely discarded. So we can use, for example, the beetroot leaves for salads. Brandon will show us a recipe now, a very simple and versatile recipe of how we can use literally any greens of the vegetables. And the last option, we can use it to extract flavor. We can make stocks, or even better, we can infuse oil with it, like Wim de Beer and Josh Steamer in the Netherlands showed me. With the ugly and bruised tomatoes and cucumbers, they turned it into a blend, which in my country we call gazpacho. But here, they did it to extract the water and turn these tomato salad into something much more tasty. Fruits. This is an example from Ebru Baybara, a chef from Turkey who's actually among us, so you can ask her directly. But she took the spoiled plums, peaches, and apples and turned it into a delicious dessert. Every spoiled fruit can be turned into pastry, into blends, and we should be using it all. Animal produce. You will be talking about the need to reduce animal consumption. Well, on top of that, the animals that we raise and that we kill, we have the responsibility to eat them all, to make the most out of it, like we used to in the past, really. So animal offal offers an opportunity to introduce some animal protein in more plant-based diets. This is veal brain spread in celery, so no one will notice. This is the opposite. It's a much more explicit one by Javi Estevez in Spain. All of these parts, we traditionally eat them in Spain, but presenting it like this is a challenge to culture, because we need to get used to seeing what we're eating, to realizing that we're eating alive and what it means and what it weighs. The eggs that come with many fish, we can use them all. This is an unusual example with octopus by Pepe Soya, which turned out to be delicious as well. And a final example with the fish bones and skin blended. Matt Orlando in Denmark turned it into noodles. So, bread and grains. Bread always ends up as waste in kitchens, hard bread. Well, there's a few solutions as well. Here, Matt Orlando, again in Denmark, extracted all the sugar from it, which is a very complex sugar. It's not just sweet, it's also salty, it's also umami, and then reduced it and turned it into ice cream, and also made miso with the bread, and also some breadcrumbs, and so he turned it into this really good dessert. And here's an example from industry. There's a lot of waste also coming up from the industry. From beer brewing, for every 100 liters of beer, there's around 20 kilos of barley that are wasted, that are spent, and we extracted the sugar, but we have all that rest. We can make many things with it. Brandon will show us another one as well. But we usually feed livestock. And you remember the hierarchy? That's the third option. If we wanted to go up in that scale, we call that upcycling. And this is an example. We can turn it into flour. And that flour, we can turn it into burger buns, which go very well with the beer. And this is a very healthy product. It's very rich in protein, very rich in fiber. So we're giving it value again to something that we considered waste before. So here's a brief summary. But as I said, it doesn't only happen at the kitchen. This is just the tip of the iceberg. It happens before, upstream. So how can we change our supply behavior to reduce the waste that is happening before? One first tip that I identify is buy the whole produce. You're responsible for the whole thing that you're buying. If you're asking for just the fillet or just the most noble part of something, there's a lot of waste that you're not seeing, but you're also creating it. Here's an example with the cod, and here's an example with Ebru Baybara in a market in Turkey. She's holding the full lettuce, the natural full lettuce, and I'm holding the final product at the market. See, when you buy the final product, there's all of that waste upstream that you've created without knowing it. And these are usually free or cheap resources where you can get a lot of nutrition, a lot of flavor from. Another tip, build menus from the farm up. If you let the farmers grow a variety of crops in the best way they can, that best fits their system, their climate, their seasons, and then you receive what they produce and make your menus out of that, you'll reduce to the minimum the waste that they're causing, the food waste, but also the energy waste. And these are two examples of unsold byproducts. If you look close at your suppliers, you'll find that there's a lot of products that no one's buying and end up being discarded. So Jimmy Oyen in Norway, I realized that baby goats are a byproduct of the dairy industry in Norway. No one's buying them. So he takes this meat, and this is the meat he serves. Cooked in a good way, everyone loves it. Same with the fish. Albert Frank in Finland realized that the fishermen were catching a lot of fish that no one wanted, and they called it trash fish. Well, he buys a trash fish, cooks it in a good way, and has a Michelin-starred restaurant serving trash fish. Third one, there's a lot of produce that in and by itself intrinsically bear a lot of waste. So we're talking about food that ends up in the bin, but we could also be talking about that we're feeding 1/3 of the whole of the grains that we're producing around the world to animals, to then turn it into many less calories for humans. So that's also a wasteful process. Instead, we can be buying pasture-based meat, which is taking advantage of resources that we humans cannot, grass. And then there's also with fishing arts, I'm thinking particularly of bottom trawling, the main way in which we catch the shrimps. Sometimes there's up to 90% of the catch that is not the target, and those are thrown overboard back into the sea but dead. There's also a solution, there's traps, more selective methods. And last one, but not least, better planning and conserving, of course. Best conservation practices, you know, each produce has the best way of conserving. Onions, potatoes go in a cool, dark place. Bananas go on their own. Bread, straight into the freezer. It's the easiest and it tastes the same. The greens, we wrap them in paper and we put it in a plastic container on the fridge. They will last much longer. There's all these tips and we should be rigorous about them. Buying perishables more frequently. Don't overstock. That causes always a lot of waste. Monitoring, that's a very important one because we're probably wasting on and on the same things over and over and losing money because we don't know. We're not adjusting our offer to the demand. And fixed menus or less options, that's a way to adjust your demand to your offer. This is what I have. And people will be happy with it if it's taken care of. And variable portion sizes because we all see the dishes coming back half full. So let people decide how much they can eat. So here's a summary again. And really, as you saw, this is not really an option. This is an imperative. It's the only way to keep this planet livable and to feed everyone that lives in it, really. So it's a great responsibility for all of us here. We first as large food companies, then as consumers, then as fathers and mothers that many of you may be. This is a central fight for making this planet livable and a better place. And it's also a great opportunity to reclaim the transformative power of food that we all believe in, and that's why we're all here united by this topic. So I'm going to stop talking and pass it on to Brandon because words speak a bit less loud than taste, I believe. And I put my email because I'm interested in knowing how you're doing it in your enterprises. How are you reducing the waste? What results are you gaining? There's a lot of experience to be shared here, and we have to be outspoken about it. Thank you, Brandon. Take it over.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and again, let's kind of put this into action a little bit, right? So, the concept of the dish. This is actually a dish that you're going to see in the report. Being from the U.S., there is a region in the U.S. That is known for a certain style of pizza. It's called Detroit-style pizza. So it's in Detroit, Michigan, which is where the big automakers are located. So GM, Ford, and what they did is they would take the trays that they were putting all of the small parts in, and somebody decided to start making bread and pizza in those trays. So this not only starts from an ingredient standpoint, but actually from the item that it is being baked in. The restaurant that I opened in New York, we actually renovated a bunch of industrial buildings, and we took all of the wood out of them, all of the metal out of them, and we turned those tables, or all of that wood, into our tables and chairs and the beds that we had in the hotel. So we were able to upcycle every single item that we came through, not only our food ingredients, but also the ingredients that actually built the restaurant itself. So with this dish, it is a spent grain focaccia. So the idea is that you speak with your local brewers, and whenever they are done, I mean, now there's breweries everywhere. Whenever they are done with that grain, you take it, you dry it out, you then mill it and turn it into flour, or you can puree it in a Roboku, and then you create the focaccia with that flour. It is then topped with some cheese, which is just a Gouda and a mozzarella. And then it is topped with nduja. So nduja is the Calabrian sausage, right? It is usually tough cuts of pork, like the shoulder. It is then mixed with Calabrian chilies and pork fat, and then it is then hung in a bung, right? So you're utilizing, again, the whole part of the animal. That is then topped with a carrot pesto, which is made with carrot tops and spinach, a little bit of Parmesan cheese, some oil, some lemon, and some avocado. So utilizing the whole carrot. And also a carrot puree that is then pureed with a little bit of Hellmann's and hot sauce, right? And the idea is that I didn't peel the carrot. I took the carrot, I cut the tops off, I used the tops for the pesto, and I used the bottoms for the puree to give you that sort of nice silky puree, and then that beautiful kind of earthy pesto that you're going to get on the top. So Chef Edwin is going to actually make some of the puree for you, or the pesto real quick, and we're going to hand out the food and let you try everything, and hopefully you enjoy it all very well. Nduja is spicy, so fair warning. I just want to give you that heads up as well. So please enjoy. You want to go and start passing out?
So really the whole thing. We have meat waste, we have vegetable waste, and we have grain waste.
Yeah, the spent grain, which I think to me, again, it's something that's very, very simple to implement, right? It's not across the board, it's not hard to do from the beginning. It also helps from a cost standpoint, right? If I'm going to bring in carrots with the tops on, then I'm going to utilize that whole carrot. Now I can take that pesto, I can put it onto a pizza, I can put it onto a sandwich. If I'm going to use the bottom for a puree, I can serve that with fish. I can put it on top of I can also put it on top of a pizza. I can use it as a carrot aioli to dip vegetables in. The nduja is one of those things that is really, really big in the United States. But it's one of those flavor profiles that is absolutely amazing, and it's just, to me, it's my favorite style of salumi. So are there any questions? Do you have any questions about how you can incorporate, how you can use it? How to do it? Anything for Diego? Anything at all?
Take it on. You have, what is it, 5 minutes?
Yeah. They haven't yelled at me yet. So eventually, is anybody currently doing anything with food waste in their operations?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a microphone, I think.
Yep, we do have a microphone. Alazar is preoccupied at the moment. Perfect. Oh.
Yes, we do the potato skin on the bar.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and potato skins are really cool too, because you can take the potato skins, you can use them as a boat to fill them. You can also dry them and use them as a salt or a seasoning. You can also do like a potato chip with a potato skin salt with a dehydrated vinegar, like what Rasmus was doing as well. Anybody else using any sort of food waste in their establishments currently?
An idea with, yeah.
How do we incorporate that into the chef curriculum? Because we can talk about it now for the older guys. What about the future? Because the future talks about the younger generation that's coming up. Can't we incorporate that into chef culinary?
Into culinary trainings?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we partner, in the US, we partner with the Culinary Institute of America. So we partner with local colleges to discuss this exact conversation with the younger generation. The younger generation, I think, is a little bit more in tune to this sort of environment. Right? They are aware of the environmental issues that we face, and they tend to be a little bit more proactive in doing that. Whereas I know whenever I was trained, everything was tornado, the waste didn't matter, it was about making it look pretty. And I think a lot of the upcoming generation is thinking more into how can I utilize everything while still making it a beautiful dish, but it doesn't have to be perfect, right? I think we see that a lot with a lot of the higher end chefs as well are starting to open lower end sort of establishments, right? They're not the white tablecloth anymore. They're going into burger chains and stuff along that line, because then they can also utilize whatever is left over from their fine dining restaurant and all of that scrap and be able to then translate it into an establishment that they can sell at a lower price point and be able to move more items while not generating waste.
But not only, you also get a lot of Michelin star chefs.
Oh, definitely.
Cooking with a lot of waste. Amas in Denmark, it's all around waste. And he was telling me, at the beginning, the consumers were like, "Are you feeding me trash?" And then he'd be like, "Well, taste it and then we talk." And they were all happy, and that was kind of the end of the change in attitude of all the consumers, you know.
Yeah.
And I think like these modern cuisine type of education that we've had in the past years is part of the problem. They've educated us to cut everything in perfect cubes, discard the rest. Everything has been like the most noble parts, but there's clearly a change in that. I don't think the younger generations can accept that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And even a lot of, like to your point, a lot of the higher end restaurants have changed into that mentality as well, right? If I'm going to create that waste, I'm going to utilize it somewhere else.
Well, the green Michelin star that just appeared in
Yes.
2020, it's all
Which is
around
amazing.
that.
Absolutely amazing. Any other questions?
So first, thanks, Leo, for everything that you share and for everything that you do. I was wondering which is the main source of food waste in the world? Is it homes, restaurants, industry?
Well, we get the graph before. You remember it's half almost on farms, half in the consumer and industry side. In Europe, the farm bit is a bit smaller than in other parts of the world, and the consumer takes on that share. Within the consumer one, if you remember the yellow camembert, most of it is usually attributed to the houses, to the household level. But I challenge that figure and I put them all together with the retail and the food services, because really consumer attitude is conditioned by how they buy and how the retail is offering the food and how the food service acts with them. So really I put them all together because I don't think it's only people's responsibility at their houses. Also, but when you're going to the supermarket and buying the whole package of 3 for 1 and all these big bags that you can't select, well, it's not your fault. You're never going to use all of that, but that's how they sell it to you.
When it goes to show too, like on the farm side of it, right? I think what we as consumers don't always see is that as a farmer, you have a very small window to get all of your crops out of the field. And if it rains, if it storms, if there's any issues whatsoever, it completely changes how you have to go at it. Some farmers will, hey, it's going to storm tomorrow. It's still not quite ready, but I need to go in. I need to harvest it all now. And so a lot of the waste can be kind of diverted if we as consumers and we as chefs become a little bit more educated about how that goes about and how we can utilize everything, whether it be a cover crop, whether it be an unripe blueberry or anything along that line. And I think that can really kind of also help the farmer survive, and it also helps the industry as a whole get better.
Yeah, I think the farmer needs to take back more control over what they grow, and then we receive those produce. And I think that's an opportunity to also innovate, because they're going to produce things that usually they don't, or others don't, a more diverse thing, and then we build menus out of that. It reduces the choices much more, and it makes it much easier, the process of building menus, I think.
Perfect. All right,
Thank you. Have you all
at
eaten?
time?
No.
What'd you
Yes. How was that?
think? Enjoy.
Was it trash? A little bit.
Ouch. No, I'm just kidding. Awesome. Well, I lost the timer. I don't know if we're...
It's over.
Hold on. Okay. Oh, it's back. I just don't know if it's done. Anyways, so if you have any more questions, feel free. If not,
Yes, great.
First of all,
yep.
thank you for the information. I think it's very inspirational for us to apply it on our businesses. And I would like to ask to see again the graph of the order in which we will discard the products.
These will take...
In theory.
Machines.
Come back next month. We'll gladly show it to you.
Yeah. Give us your email.
Scan this QR code.
We are getting there. The hierarchy, you mean, right? You mean the hierarchy? Right. So on top of it, we have reduce it, not let any waste happen. Let's just avoid having any excess. Then we have donating it. So you have excess, well, that's what it is. Then do something with it. Donate it to people. In every street in the world, you have excess of food in one place and you have scarcity in another one. There's just not that connection. There's not that constant flow of excess. Well, organize that. Donate everything that you have in excess, and then feed livestock. That's another option as well. I mean, it's a way to recover part of the energy of that food. You're losing a lot of it, but of course, this is not a perfect world. We'll never get to 0% food waste because that's not how we work. We're animals. We're not perfect machines. Well, perfect. Not every machine is perfect, but but really, there will always be food waste. We're just talking about reducing it. 40% is way too much. And this is actually since the industrialization of food systems. Before, we didn't have so much food waste. So we've realized that our food system today is not efficient. We thought it was. It's very productive, but efficient, it's not. There's a lot of waste, not only of food, also of energy everywhere. And the later we waste food, so if I go and buy a packaged produce, pre-cooked produce from a supermarket and I waste it, that's a lot of energy that's been wasted. Much more than if I wasted at the farm, because we had to package it, we had to cook it, we had to process the whole thing, transport it, put it in my fridge, and all of that energy just goes straight into the bin. So reduce it, and the sooner the better. Try the mic, because the online people won't hear you otherwise.
Let me see.
Yeah. Cool. I just wanted to ask quickly, so what you spoke to earlier seems to talk to the production aspect prior to the food getting to the plate and getting to the diner. Do we touch on the report on how we can control the wastage after we've now dished and the portioning that comes with it? Because sometimes what I've noticed is that people almost just, you get a lot of food and you either cannot take it home because, it's a salad or something. Do we touch on that, which also I think contributes to food waste?
You mean the report by Unilever?
Yeah.
I'm not involved in that. Do you know?
We do not touch on the post-diner interaction.
Okay.
Because in most operations, right, we're not allowed to really do anything with the food post-diner interaction. It has to go either into the compost or into the bin, unfortunately. So what one of the things that I've done in the past is I've worked with local organizations. Do Good Chicken is a company in the United States that's currently picking up a lot of stuff and turning it into chicken feed. I have worked with different people making biodiesel out of my fryer oil, so that way I didn't have to dump that. It was then taken and turned into something that was able to put the energy back in. But unfortunately, post-diner interaction, you have very, very tight constraints on what you can do with it. But definitely finding a local farm that can then turn it into feed, or finding an organization that is currently trying to produce dog food or whatever it is from the waste is definitely a good way to go. And it usually costs the operation nothing. I would pay to have my oil discarded before, and then I found somebody who was turning it into biodiesel. He picked it up twice a week, and it saved a cost on my balance sheet, and it also saved my oil from just being dumped or burned and not being utilized. So,
and
all right.
replacing fossil fuels, everything is round in the end. And
awesome.
And well, I don't know if we're done.
Yeah, we gotta.
We are.
I was told we have to wrap up.
What is it? That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyways,
Thank you.
yeah, so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
It's all right.
I think we got to send you on to the next, not nearly as fun portion, but you know, but thank you so much for coming. We really, really, really hope that you enjoy the rest of your time with us here, and have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the trend I'm focusing on currently is low waste menus, and it's extremely important to the North American market because of the fact that there's always been an overabundance of food in North America that we tend to get rid of. So this allows us, from an operator standpoint, to be able to take some of the items that we normally would have thrown away and turn them into something delicious. So whether it's carrot top pesto or a spent grain flatbread or fermented garlic, it just kind of really opens up the operator to being able to control cost and control food waste.